Greetings to everyone. I'm Daniel Banks, just one of the grandsons of the late educator, businessman, and civil rights activist, Mr. Edward Daniel Davis Sr., pictured behind me on the cover of the book that I wrote about his life. Since writing the book, I've acquired Mr. Davis's personal papers, most of which have never before been seen in public. For the sake of history, I thought I would share a few pieces with you from the Davis collection. And so we will begin with the first piece. This is a letter to Mr. Davis from the late Mary McLeod Bethune, and I'll read it for you, or read it with you rather. This is dated March 19th of 1936. So I will point out that long before Martin Luther King, long before Rosa Parks sat down on the bus, Mr. Edward D. Davis was fighting for the civil rights of the Black people in the state of Florida. So his friend or his colleague, Mrs. Bethune, writes from Bethune-Cookman College. My dear Mr. Davis, it's been in my mind to write to congratulate you upon your being elected to the presidency of the Florida State Teachers Association and to pledge to you our finest cooperation. You have a very splendid task before you, and I hope that you will be able to carry forward your progress with great success. Thanks very much for your invitation to accept a place on the advisory board, to consult with the co-ed committee on problems facing Negro teachers and pupils in Florida. I shall be very glad to serve on such a committee. I am hoping that much good will be accomplished. Come over and visit us sometime. We are having Senior Day at Bethune-Cookman College, Sunday, March 22nd at 3 o'clock. Come over and be with us. We shall be most happy to see you. Sincerely yours, Mary McLeod Bethune. I absolutely love the tone and the tenor of this letter. I've always admired Mrs. Bethune, and I visited her college campus some years ago with my godchildren when they were very small. But I just never knew until recently the connection that she had with my late grandfather. And she is very ingratiating in the letter, as I'm sure that you saw. So that's one of the pieces from the Davis collection of personal papers for Edward D. Davis. As I said again, from Mary McLeod Bethune. So I will also share with you another letter from her in another year. Let me get that one up on the screen. Okay, hold on just a second. I think I got the wrong one. Let me check again. Okay. It seems that some things have turned around here. I'm not the greatest technical person, and that's not the right one either. But I will talk to these as well. Let me see here. Where am I going wrong? Let me try something else. Okay, finally we have the right one. So sorry about that. This is from Mrs. Mary McLeod Bethune to Edward D. Davis, but this is many years later. It's dated May 7th, 1951, if you can see this on your screen. And the letterhead stationery reads that it's from Central Life Insurance Company of Florida, which was situated in Tampa, Florida. Many people don't know that Mrs. Bethune was once the president of Central Life Insurance Company. And in fact, she is the founder, or at least one of the founders of Central Life Insurance Company. My late grandfather, Mr. Edward D. Davis, was also president of Central Life Insurance Company in years later than this. But Mrs. Bethune, at one point in her life, was president. And so this is 1951, and she's writing to Mr. Davis again. Dear, or my dear Mr. Davis, may I thank you for your letter of May 1st in regards to our entering the Supreme Court of the United States on the subject of our educational rights in the state of Florida. We must keep on fighting and working until we get results. We will get them. I shall be very glad to bring this to the attention of our board in its meeting on the 10th, with the hope that they might feel called upon to do something definitely worthwhile. I hope that you will be able to attend the stockholders meeting the afternoon of the 10th at 2 o'clock. Sincerely yours, Mary McLeod Bethune, President of Central Life Insurance Company. Another beautiful and ingratiating letter to Mrs. Bethune. Now, this letter is not cute to go up on the screen, but this is one of the responses from Mr. Davis to Mrs. Bethune. It's a couple weeks later. It's dated May 15th, 1951. As I said, I'm not going to put this one up on the screen. This is to President M.M. Bethune of Central Life Insurance Company in Tampa. Dear Mrs. Bethune, on behalf of the steering committee, I wish to thank you for the check sent to us in the University of Florida case. We appreciate your generosity, and your check will go a long ways in helping us achieve victory. You might be interested to know that on next Monday, May 21st, we will go back in the state Supreme Court in this case. If our plea is denied there, we will appeal directly to the U.S. Supreme Court. Again, I wish to thank you. Yours very truly, Edward D. Davis, Chairman, Steering Committee, University of Florida Project. At that particular time, Mr. Davis was fighting for integration of the law school at the University of Florida. And Mr. Virgil D. Hawkins was one of the plaintiffs named in the case. If I make no mistake, it started about 1949. And for 9 long years, Mr. Davis led the charge, with others, of course, to integrate the law school of the University of Florida. So you will see a letter from Mr. Virgil D. Hawkins later in this particular presentation. But that is what he was writing Mrs. McLeod for, and thanking her for her obviously generous donation to the cause. All right, next up, I would like to show you a letter if I can get this done right. Let me see. Okay, that's the letter from Virgil D. Hawkins, but I'm not ready for that one yet. Let me try this again. I thought I had everything all lined out as it should be. Okay. Let me try this one. Nope, 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 nope. Okay. All right, we will try again. Okay, I got the one that I wanted. All right, this letter is from Thurgood Marshall to Mr. Edward D. Davis, and this is dated April 4th, 1952. And this is before Mr. Marshall became a US Supreme Court Justice, but at the time he was an attorney with the NAACP's Legal Defense Fund. All right, so he writes Mr. Davis, and he begins, Dear Ed, the Collier's article of February 23rd about me contains the statement, today, Negroes vote with relative ease in every state in the Union except Louisiana, Alabama, and Florida, where registration is still made difficult for them, either by physical intimidation or by subjecting them to an intelligence test question like, how many windows in the White House? Governor Warren has declared that this statement is untrue insofar as Florida is concerned. He has even threatened to sue Colliers. I would like as much firsthand information as you can get showing the factual situation in Florida in recent years to substantiate the statement of Mr. Pauling's article. Is it not also true that the killing of Harry Moore was connected with his voting and registration campaign? I would like your views on that as well as any other ways. We want as much ammunition as possible to answer the governor. Thanks, sincerely yours, Thurgood Marshall, Special Counsel. So as you can see, they were on first name basis with each other. He's referring to my late grandfather as Ed, and I saw also communication from my grandfather to Mr. Marshall, and he referred to him or addressed him as Thurgood. Again, this letter is from April 4th, 1952. Okay, so we will go a little farther. I want to share another piece with you, if I can, from the collection. Hopefully I can get this one up the right way. All right, this is May 4th, or from May 4th, 1956. This is from Stephen C. O'Connell, a Florida Supreme Court Justice. And I know those of you who live in Gainesville are very familiar with the Stephen C. O'Connell Center there, a place where I'm sure that they hold concerts and other types of public events. Okay, Mr. Connell is writing Mr. Davis as per the Florida Voters League, of which Mr. Davis was president of. He writes, Dear Mr. Davis, I apologize for the delay in answering your letter of April 26th, in which you advised me of the action of your organization at a meeting held at St. Petersburg on April 22nd. I'm grateful for the action which you've taken and will appreciate it if you will express to your membership my gratitude. As you know, there is no way that any member of the judiciary can repay those who help him in a political campaign except by performing the functions of his office in a manner which will merit the approval of the people and reflect credit on the court where he sits. This I will do so long as the people of this state will allow me to do so. Thanking you again, I am sincerely yours, Stephen C. O'Connell. So Mr. Davis, down through the years, in this collection are many, many, many papers, starting in 1934 and going through to 1973. So from just the few that I'm putting up this afternoon, you can see that Mr. Davis was really, really involved in civil rights in Florida, in voting rights for Black people, in education, better facilities for students and for Black teachers at the segregated schools, at Howard Academy and Howard High School in Ocala, Marion County, Florida. Mr. Davis was very, very instrumental in winning equal pay for Black teachers in the 1940s. And because of his activism for equal pay, he was fired from his principalship at Howard Academy, but nonetheless, through his businesses with Central Life Insurance Company and the Davis gas station, the Shell franchise that he had for many years in Ocala, and other positions that he held in many places in Florida, he kept fighting for voting rights, voting registration, housing, urban development, the whole gamut, you name it. So Mr. Davis was very active in civil rights before it was ever popular. So I just wanted to share a few of these documents so that you could see how very active he was. Now I'm moving on to another one, and I hope that I can get the right one up in the right order. Okay, let me try here. Voila. We're moving on down to October 22nd, 1956. If you can see this on your screen, hopefully. From the Office of the Secretary of State of Florida, Mr. R.A. Gray. I believe it was Mr. Gray, Secretary of State. He writes, "Dear Mr. Davis, this acknowledges receipt of your letter dated October 19th. Enclosed herewith is a tabulation of the registered voters in the state of Florida for the general election. I've also enclosed a pamphlet copy of the proposed constitutional amendments to be voted on November 6th, 1956. With kind regards, I am cordially yours, R.A. Gray, Secretary of State." So Mr. Davis needed that information, I'm sure, to further the fight and further the cause for voting rights and for equal opportunities for the Black citizens of the state of Florida. Okay, I'll take that one down, and we will try to get up one that I had up earlier. If I can get it right this time, we are ready for this. Okay, let me see here. Great, great, great. Okay, now we're ready to talk about Mr. Virgil D. Hawkins. As I mentioned earlier, Mr. Hawkins was the plaintiff in the lawsuit against the law school of the University of Florida, not the entire university, but the law school at that time in the late 1940s and the early 1950s was not admitting Black students into their law school. They were advising them to go to HBCUs. However, FAMU and some of the other HBCUs involved did not offer the same courses that the white universities did. And so these students, and as I said, Mr. Hawkins was the main plaintiff, but there were others who were plaintiffs in this case as well. The university was trying to reroute them, as I said, to HBCUs. And then in some cases, these universities, including the University of Florida, would pay for students to go to colleges up north, just as long as you did not bother them and try to get into their schools down here in the South, they were fine. They would pay for students to get their education, their college education in the North. And so some students took advantage of that. And then when they returned here to the South for jobs, they were more qualified in a lot of cases than their white counterparts, but yet they were paid in a lot of cases 1/3 the salary that their white counterparts were paid for doing the same job, or at most, or at best, 1/2 the salary of their white counterparts. And that was the reason there were other lawsuits brought against various school districts led by Mr. Davis and his friends later on in the 1940s. But right now, this is a response from Virgil D. Hawkins when he enrolled at Bethune-Cookman College, and he's writing to Edward D. Davis. I don't see a date on this particular letter, but I'm assuming that, or the date has been kind of washed out, but I'm assuming that it was sometime in the 1950s. It reads, "Dear Ed, I guess you've been keeping up with our case in the newspapers. I tried to see you Sunday in Ocala. I was there for an hour. Pay no attention to what you hear on the television. I might be dumb, but I will be the last man to admit it. I have a problem. While you know I am fighting and am preparing to enter the university in October, I will have to go to summer school this summer in order to maintain my status here so that I may still have a job if nothing happens to go wrong before September. If you have anything in the treasure, or if you have a suggestion, send them both to me. Boy, am I in need. I will begin registering all of the students and teachers on our campus who have not registered and will send you the total of our registration. Call me at my expense. Your friend, Virgil D. Hawkins." And in other communications that I have seen, Mr. Davis responded to him on several times and sent him stipends to sustain him while his case rather was being reviewed many times in the Florida Supreme Court and in the other district courts. And even Mr. Ed Fordham helped him to finance Mr. Virgil D. Hawkins at one point. So this is very, very rich Black history that we've never been exposed to. But as I said, the collection is very large, but I wanted to share a few pieces with you for the sake of history. Okay, so I will take this one down. This letter I've not posted, and I won't post it either, but I will take a moment and read this to you. This is Mr. Davis writing to, at that time, Senator Hubert Humphrey, and he was writing on behalf of the Florida Voters League, of which he was president at the time. My dear Senator Humphrey, we, the Negroes of the South, are distressed at the apparent inclination on the part of some senators to strip the Civil Rights Bill of its potency and effectiveness. Have you ever heard of that before? No one knows better than you that a law with no enforcement provision is the same as no law at all. The White Citizens Council and KKK element, plus the Southern politicians, know too well that through their age-old system of segregation, discrimination, disenfranchisement, systemic exclusion of Negroes from jury duty, intimidation, threats, and police brutality, that jury trial simply means white jury trial. They know that the culprit's kin and fellow Klansmen will nullify any contempt procedure through mass acquittals. We implore that you not give in to this Southern ruse, but pass the bill as it came up from the House of Representatives. We are sure that you realize that our country is on trial. Unless America can quickly make her racial practices express good conscience before the conscience of the world, she cannot hope to retain the leadership so largely entrusted to her now, or even to retain her own self-respect. Sincerely yours, Edward D. Davis, President, as I said before, of the Florida Voters League. Okay, I will move along and try to get up another letter that I had up earlier and hope that I can get the right one in. Let me check and see where we are here. Okay, I'm searching. Let me take a look. I'm not sure if this is the right one. Okay, there we go. If you can see this, this is a letter from the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. from his Montgomery, Alabama office, or from his church rather, on Dexter Avenue in Montgomery, Alabama. This is dated October 22nd, 1957. And this letter is to Mr. Edward D. Davis, President of the Florida Voters League, and the address there in Tampa, Florida at this particular time. Martin Luther King Jr. writes to Mr. Davis, "Dear Mr. Davis, this is just a note to acknowledge receipt of your very kind letter of September 20th. I'm just returning to the office after being away for about 6 weeks. My absence from the city accounts for the delay in replying. I am very sorry that I did not get back in time to send a message to your meeting on September 29, stressing the need for our people to register and vote. I hope it will be possible for you to work with the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, which at this time is in the process of initiating a voting and registration drive to cover the whole South. Our next meeting will be held in Memphis, Tennessee on the 5th of November. I will have the corresponding secretary to send you a letter announcing the meeting, and I hope it will be possible for you to come. Yours very truly, signed, M.L. King Jr., Minister." And I do have the correspondences from his corresponding secretary, stating just as he said she would state. So I'm very happy to share these documents. Mr. Davis was so busy, but this is just the tip of the iceberg as far as his collection of personal papers are concerned. And I will close with the reading of just one more. This particular letter, if I can get it up properly, is from Florida Governor, or late Florida Governor, Reuben Askew. to Mr. Edward Davis. And the coincidental thing about it is Mr. Davis is enshrined in the Florida Civil Rights Hall of Fame in Tallahassee at the Capitol Rotunda. And Governor Askew is enshrined there as well. They were both civil rights activists in the state of Florida. And the fact that Governor Askew was also a civil rights activist is not known by everyone, but he is there as well as Mr. Davis. And I want to try to end with that particular letter if I can find it and get it up. Let's try this one. There we go. If you can see this, please. It is from the state of Florida, the office of Governor Reuben O.D. Askew. And that's probably old Donald or something like that, Askew. It is dated August 6th, 1973. This letter is to Mr. Edward D. Davis, President of Central Life Insurance Company, Post Office Box 3286 in Tampa. He writes, "Dear Mr. Davis," excuse me, "thank you for your recent letter recommending Mr. George E. Edgecombe as County Judge in Hillsborough County. It was my pleasure to announce the appointment of Mr. Edgecombe on August 3rd. With his excellent background, I am sure that Mr. Edgecombe will be a real credit to the judiciary. With kindest regards, sincerely, Reuben Askew, Governor." I really, really appreciate all of these correspondences. This is just so wonderful to me. Excuse me. And I am thrilled to be able to share with you just a portion of the Edward Daniel Davis Sr. collection of personal papers. Mr. Davis worked so hard. There is a bust in his honor at the Tampa Riverwalk. There is a portion of US 441 in Orlando that has been renamed in his honor. There is a street renamed in his honor in Ocala, Marion County, where he worked at Howard Academy and Howard High School for a number of years. I am so very proud of my late grandfather. He was my mother's father. His eldest daughter was my mother. All right, I knew him as a grandfather. I knew him very well as a grandfather, and I knew of some of his, as I got to be a grown man, I came into the knowledge of some of his civil rights contributions, some things he told me about personally, some things I learned from the community, other things I learned through research. But the information that I've just shared with you has not been seen publicly, maybe with the exception of one letter. And I've just acquired this information. And as I said, it's such good Black history. I thought it robbery not to share I did not want to keep this information hidden from the public. This information needs to be known. And reading those letters that were written to Mr. Davis, you can get a better sense of the mindset of the writer. People like Martin Luther King Jr., people like Marion McLeod Bethune, Stephen C. O'Connell, and so many others. It is just absolutely mind-boggling to me, the work that Edward Davis did, and some of it he is still unsung for. Okay, so I wanted to share. I hope this has been a blessing to you. I hope that this has opened your eyes in some ways. I hope it stimulated your imagination, and some of the topics that were discussed in some of those letters, the very same thing is happening today in our country. So we have got to get busy. It's been 2 generations, and then there's a couple of generations behind me, and we are still having problems with voting rights, with voting bills, with police brutality, with equal access, with insurance, life insurance, health insurance, educational facilities, the whole gamut. So we've got to be about our Father's business, and we've got to leave this nation better than we found it. I thank you so much. I hope this has been helpful to you. Have a very good afternoon.